Welcome back to another episode of Perkins Pipes. I've got the elegant Georg Jensen bent Dublin for you here today. This is just such an elegant, small pipe. And both elegant and small are the key words for this particular episode. So as always, let's get this guy lit. Let's get to talking. Between 84 and 54 BC, there lived a Roman poet named Catullus. And I've talked about some of his poetry before. This is indeed an episode of the Pipe and Verse segment of Perkins Pipes. I've talked about him before. Died at age 30, wrote 116 poems, and, variety of topics, a lot of them having to do with love and love affairs and so forth. Today I want to talk to you about one of the most famous poems in literature, and it is poem number 85. It is a 2-line poem. Yes, you heard that right. Only 2 lines. We call that an epigram. So just a short little poem. And let me just read it to you. Let me read it to you, translate it real quickly for you, and then we'll get into it. And you say, well, 2-line poem, this is going to be a short video. It may be, but it's probably going to be a little bit longer than you think because there's so much that Catullus does in these 2 exquisitely crafted lines. Starts off and he says, O detamo, quared faciam fortasse requiris, nescio, sed fieri sentiat excrucior. That's it. Those are the 2 lines. What do they mean? Odi et amo. I hate and I love. Quare id faciam. Why I do it? Fortasse requiris. Perhaps you ask. Second line. Nescio. I don't know. Sed fieri sentio. But I sense that this is the case. I sense that that's what's happening here. Et excrucior. Or in the ecclesiastical pronunciation, excrucior. And I am tortured. A good artist, be it a poet, author of longer literature, painter, musician, whatever, an artist, will create art that does 2 things. It connects on an immediate level, connecting people to people, people to ideas and so forth, and then it connects on a transcendent level, cross time, cross space, cross cultures. It doesn't matter that this particular poem was written over 2,000 years ago in Italy. Anybody, and in fact, if you live long enough, everybody will experience these emotions. So let's dig into it a little bit. And then we're going to tell you a little bit about what it might have to do with World War II. What? I told you it might be a little bit more in this video than you realize. Starts off with 2 big words that are tiny. Odi, O-D-I. 3 letters. Amo, A-M-O, 3 letters. Tiny little words, but they are huge in meaning. Odi, I hate. What a way to begin a poem. And I love. Right away, 2 opposite emotions. You kind of want to think about it, right? So you got hatred and love, just opposite emotions. Boom, stating a fact, I hate and I love. And he says, why I do it, perhaps you ask. It's a reasonable question. How can you have such conflicting emotions, Catullus? How can that possibly be? And his answer, brutally honest. Second line, nescio, I don't know. I don't know. Cognitively, I don't get it either. Said, fieri sentio, but I sense, I feel that this is the case. I don't know, I don't understand cognitively, but in my heart, I feel that it is so. And I am tortured by it. So let's start off with just kind of the content there. In the context, what we know about Catullus' life and his other poems, he was probably talking about a woman he was dating. A married woman, and we've talked about her in another poem, and we're going to set that aside for the moment. That was the context, right? So that's kind of that horizontal aspect. But the transcendent aspect is every one of us has felt this from time to time. Now, maybe you felt it regarding a romantic interest. Maybe it's even regarding your spouse. But it might be regarding your job. I hate and I love. There's aspects about it that are driving me nuts, but I also really enjoy what I do. Right? I sometimes have that feeling regarding technology. I hate and I love. Right? There's aspects about it that drive me bananas, and then, couldn't make these videos if it weren't for that. We experience those wildly conflicting emotions. And if you'd ask us why, I don't think we would know either. So, early, mid-video question for you. And you may not want to respond in the comments, and that's fine. Have you experienced that? Have you experienced such wildly contrasting emotions at the same time? The heart, the human heart, is quite capacious, or it has great capacity. And we can feel conflicting emotions at the same time. Has that ever been the case for you? And did it feel like you were being tortured? Now, I want to go into the poem a little bit more. See, Catullus is a really good poet. He's a really good poet. And you take the first two words, odi and amo, I hate and I love, right? Opposite emotions. The very last word of the poem is excrucior, and I am tortured by it. What that literally means, the root in the middle of that word is C-R-U-C, crook. You might be starting to think of a word now. Excruciating pain. Yes, now you're onto something. And why do we call it excruciating pain? Because cruc, C-R-U-C, is the root of the Latin word for cross. Crux, crucis is the Latin word for cross. Yes, that's where we get crucify and crucifixion. And he says, you know what? I hate and I love, and this feels like I'm being drawn out onto the bars of a cross. What a distinctly Roman metaphor. Other cultures did use crucifixion as a method of execution, but we associate that so much with the Romans, and they certainly did do it a lot. Ooh, this little two-line poem, this beautiful, elegant little two-line poem, like this beautiful, elegant little bent Dublin pipe. Just 2 lines long. First 2 words, I hate and I love, kind of gets the opposite emotions. The very last word, excrucior, I'm drawn out onto the cross. The first 2 words mirror the very last word of the poem. And in between, you've got the conflict between the head and the heart. I don't understand it, but I feel it. My friends, I don't know if most of the rest of us could pack that much into 2 lines. And then, done. Done. We don't need 3, 4, 10, 12 lines. That's enough. That's enough to capture it. And you say, well, what in the world does that got to do with World War II? Well, maybe nothing. But some years ago, there was a movie that came out, 1989, heaven's sakes, called Fat Man and Little Boy. Now, this is a movie about J. Robert Oppenheimer, who in this movie was played by Dwight Schultz. And those of you who go back to the 80s, you may remember Dwight Schultz. He played Howling Mad Murdoch on the A-Team. If you remember that television show. You've got the inimitable, oh, come on now, Paul Newman as General Leslie Groves. You got Bonnie Bedelia, John Cusack here, Natasha Richardson, Laura Dern, and some others. Now, here recently, there was a big epic movie about Oppenheimer. It's just called Oppenheimer, and it covers a lot of the same territory as Fat Man and Little Boy, which, if you know your history, those were the names of the 2 bombs that America dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II. And there's a wonderful scene in the movie, I'll hold this over here, where Oppenheimer and one of his assistants, played by John Cusack, they're out riding in the desert of New Mexico. Los Alamos, right? The Manhattan Project, developing and testing the atomic bomb. And it's gotten to the point where the physicists, they found out they can do it. Right? They can do this thing, create this bomb, and now come the moral questions. Now come the ethical questions. Should we? We've got the knowledge now. We can, but should we? And in this particular film, Oppenheimer and his assistant are out riding in the desert, riding horses. At one point, Oppenheimer, they stop, and they're just looking out over the vista, and Oppenheimer says, "Odi et amo, I hate and I love. Catullus, do you know it?" And his assistant says, "No." And Oppenheimer then quotes the whole thing. He says, "I hate and I love. Why I do it, perhaps you ask. I don't know. I feel both, and I am in agony." There was a time when even scientists knew their literature, and literature and history really had some good knowledge of science as well. In fact, I may have mentioned it on this channel before, but I love the early 20th century and the area of theoretical physics and all that kind of stuff. And I love those people that were involved in that. These were people who played music, and they read poetry and literature and so forth, along with the hardcore mathematics and physics and all of that. Now, I don't know if Oppenheimer knew Catullus. I've read one biography of him. I don't recall that, but he may well have, and it's a fitting thing, even if it's not 100% accurate. And it brings out, again, why we read literature like this. For moments in our lives, here's Oppenheimer. He's thrilled, as a physicist, that he's figured out how to do this. But then, should we? I'm worried. What if we make this bomb and it actually blows up the entire Earth? What if we unleash something that we wish we hadn't? I hate and I love. Exquisite little poem, and, if I may say, an exquisite little pipe. Folks, as Malcolm Guite likes to say, I do these little things in order at last to do nothing. Or as I like to say in Latin, Harvo ago ut tandem nihil agam. Have a wonderful day.